Hello and welcome to another episode of the Board Game Barbecue podcast. This is episode 303, brought to you by the very lovely Advent Games and our awesome Patreons. I am joined by two of my favourite Brisbane brethren. Hey, Adrian and Dana.
How are we doing?
Hello, Joe.
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you guys? Have you kind of come down from PlayCon?
I think so. I was very sick during PlayCon.
Yeah.
I had otitis externa, which sounds like a Harry Potter spell, and I didn't know what it was, and I was taking the wrong antibiotics for it through the whole thing, and it didn't do anything, and it just got worse and worse and worse, and driving home was a nightmare, but it was so good. Oh my God, PlayCon was so much fun. It was just lovely to see everybody. I mean, it started at Mitch's house, packing games into boxes with you guys and just talking rubbish, and there was just so many games in the library. It kind of shocked me. I knew that we were getting a lot of games and there was lots of stuff to do, but it wasn't until I was at Mitch's house and we had to go to his storage unit to get a roof rack cover to put games on the roof of his Prada. Is that Prada or Prado? Prada's a handbag.
Prado.
Yeah.
Prado. Yeah. On the roof.
You're really showing your class there, Adrian.
Wow. Yeah, exactly right. I just know that they're the right ones to steal. So, but basically, yeah, it was just insane. The whole experience was like a dream. Like it wasn't real, if I'm honest. It was just beginning to end, fun, chaos, lots of work. I think worth it in the end. I think.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into the PlayCon kind of roundup, as this episode is going to be mostly talking about the PlayCon roundup and how things went. If this is your first episode you're tuning into, PlayCon was a first national board game convention that we at the Board Game Barbecue put on in Sydney, and it was a smashing success. It was, I think, we got so much lovely feedback from everyone, and just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of the attendees who kind of contributed to that really awesome atmosphere and made it the event that it was. So a massive thanks to everyone that came along. It was awesome.
How good were those volunteers?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we had, I don't know how many volunteers there were. Adrian, you may know, but
I think there was 27 volunteers and one voluntold, which was MJ. So that's what she kept telling everybody. She's like, I'm not a volunteer. I've been voluntold.
Oh,
so
I'm going to do that with my husband. My husband is coming next year and he's volunteering.
He's voluntolding.
But even worse, he doesn't even play board games and I'm forcing him to volunteer.
What I thought was awesome is that we had some volunteers that had never volunteered for us before at the game days, and some of them had never played hobby board games before, and yet they still volunteered and kind of got into it. I thought that was really cool.
I thought so too. There was one volunteer, and I'm sorry that I can't remember her name, but she was on the Board Game Barbecue library and was actually a video gamer and had volunteered for one day, wasn't attending the event at all, was literally just spending her entire time at PlayCon volunteering. And it was a long day for her. She did the entire day. So it was really special for someone to give up their time like that to
I think that was Simran that you're talking about.
That's it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So it was really special.
Awesome.
Yeah, the whole thing was nuts. Completely crazy, to be honest. I remember the Patreon party, even the starting off with that. And obviously then before that, we had all the setup and all the other stuff going on in the background. But then Dan had a designer mingle with all the people who attended Designer Alley and then some of our guests that were attending as vendors and stuff. And that was great. And everybody had a good time with that. And then moving on to the Patreon party was just insane. Great vibes. Lovely to have everybody in the same room. All these people have been talking on Discord for years. Some of them haven't met before. Some of them are new to Discord or new to the Patreon thing. And it was just great. It was just that, I think, really started the whole vibe of the entire thing. That being a great success and having great fun and memories just before we've even opened the door was just fantastic. So, yeah.
I was a little
massive
bit
thanks to all the Patreons for supporting us, because without them, PlayCon wouldn't be possible. So
I was a little bit disappointed.
Why are we disappointed?
What? I was a little bit disappointed because I do not drink. I do not drink. My kids, and they're teenagers, they're adults, have not seen me drink at all. And I thought, oh, I'm going to have some cocktails. And which was probably a recipe for disaster. And I started getting a little bit rowdy, and I got told to be quiet. Otherwise, I'd have to leave.
Yeah.
For goodness sake.
You weren't that rowdy.
I had to.
You weren't that rowdy, and you were just very excited to see Sam McDonald and Bobby Hill walk in the room.
I was extremely excited. I think I scared the crap out of him when I screamed.
Yeah. And half of the other half of the restaurant and venue as well, they all freaked out and looked. But yeah, they were a bit uptight about that stuff, if I'm honest. But to be honest, it was fine. Other than that, it was a great night. So
it was great because I have not met any of the other Patreons really outside of the Brisbane game day. I haven't met anybody. So it was nice to put a face to a name, actually. So it was really lovely.
It was really great to – one of the things I've always loved about the board game barbecue events is that you kind of feel like you're catching up with friends that you've known for a really long time. And one of the, I guess, concerns I had for PlayCon is would that scale up to a much larger event? And I think it absolutely did. And I think from that point of view, it was a really great success in that it just felt like you're just meeting these people that you've never met before, and yet you're having conversations where you skip a lot of the steps of like friendship and you just kind of get straight into the connection, which was, the Patreon party was the start of that for sure. Because I met people there that I hadn't met before from the Patreon. You had people come over from WA and people down from Canberra. So it was really great.
The range of people that went to PlayCon was amazing. There was there was this particular group of ladies, older ladies. I don't know if you saw them or not, but they were in their 70s, and I think one was 81 because I was talking about my mother being 83. One was 81. Anyway, I was interviewing them, or trying to anyway. I was trying to interview them, and I came out with this question, which was probably assuming that because of their age, they would only be able to play a lower level game. And I said, I thought I saw you over there playing, what was it, Ticket to Ride? Little do I know that their favourite game is On Mars. I could not believe it. I just went, oh, really? But I mean, like, honestly, I can't believe just the range of people from, children. There were children there, people with children and their parents bringing their families and things like that, all the way up to 80-year-olds.
Yeah, it was awesome to see.
And everybody just meshed together in this group, with this shared love of board games, and it made for a really wonderful ambience. It was wonderful.
There was also a lady from Russia there, which I thought was very cool, and she'd attended the Blood on the Clock Tower event and the PlayCon events. I believe the reason why she attended that particular week is she's looked up other conventions in the area when she was coming for Blood on the Clock Tower and had seen PlayCon was a thing. So she was like, sweet, I'll go on this week because I can kind of do both. And then she did like a whole vlog thing because she's got like 65,000 people following her on Instagram and stuff. That was pretty cool. Did not expect stuff like that. There was people from Japan that were there. Like it was just, it was mind-blowing, some of the people that traveled those distances to attend this little convention in Sydney. It was really kind of nice. It was nice to have all these different people from different parts of the world in one space.
Amazing to think when this was first conceived, that the reach it would have, that it would reach people in Japan to then come down and see the con and see what was happening. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Overwhelming as well in a strange way, because it was just like, what? Someone said there's a lady from Russia. I was like, what? What is going on? But yeah, it was lovely. It was really amazing to see so many people having a great time. And like you said, the range of people and the diversity in the room was just throughout. It was amazing. So it just kind of felt like one of our game days, that welcoming, accepting kind of vibe, but just bigger, and with a few extra activities and different things to do. But yeah, the heart of it, I feel, stayed the same. So, yeah.
I wish that, because I was sort of mainly around taking photographs and videos and things like that, that was sort of my role. So I really didn't participate in anything. It was really just watching other people participate. But as I look back on it, I was surprised at how much joy I got out of watching other people enjoy themselves. It was really wonderful, and I probably my only regret was not seeing some of the panels a little bit. I know both of you worked on the panels, so I was wondering how you thought they went.
Yeah, I thought they were really successful. It was one of the things that I was actually really glad that I ended up being rostered onto the panels, because I got to see a good chunk of them. And I think, like you said, Dana, if we were rostered somewhere else as part of the crew, I think we would have missed the panels. And it's something that I think is a point of differentiation for a lot of the other board game specific cons that are in Australia. So it was nice to see, a range of different people from different backgrounds. There were content creators like Amy and Maggie, there was artists like Ian O'Toole and Samara from 1000 Rats, and then the designers as well, talking about their kind of views of the hobby. It was just nice to see that diversity of opinion, to see people kind of sharing in that passion for board games and that love of board games. And it was just nice to see these people that you kind of think of as like these famous people, Sam McDonald, Bobby Hill, these designers, and then really down to earth and having a chat about board games in a way that's really accessible for the audience. I thought, it was just a really nice difference from what we normally do at the board game barbecue game days.
Because it is different, there was a certain amount of fear in doing them for myself, because there'd be nothing worse than nobody turning up, and it's just everyone gaming hard upstairs and just having a great time. And that level of anxiety was the only thing I was really worried about, to be honest, because I was like, if no one turns up, it's on me. I feel like it's my fault and I should have promoted it better or explained it better and things like that. But that wasn't the case. They were busy. There were plenty of people going to each one, and some of them groups were smaller than others, but they were more intimate and more focused on a very particular aspect, including marketing your board game, how to take your game from a concept to the point of completion and actually getting it out into the world professionally. It was just great. And obviously Amy and Maggie's one was awesome, with charades and this interesting, lively start to the panel, which was great. And it was just great. The whole thing, I really enjoyed it. I didn't get to see all of them or, from beginning to end, but anytime that I got to walk in the room and hear people talk, it was always, it was really nice. It was really amazing to see that. Yeah. Thanks to all those people that helped and gave up their time at PlayCon to do these events.
And it's not like they're paid to do it, right? So they're doing it for free because of the love of the hobby. So that's always so appreciated.
And what hobby can you meet like your, celebrities? I mean, they're our celebrities, aren't they, of the hobby? And there's very few hobbies where you can actually go somewhere and meet these people and talk to them like real people. It's what an opportunity. And actually, I must admit, I got a little bit tongue-tied. I was quite nervous, contrary to what you thought at the Patreon party.
You were tongue-tied then, mate. Don't worry.
But I found it really hard to even just say hello. I was sort of thinking to myself, I'm sort of beneath them type thing. It was a little bit like that. And it was funny talking to some people, because there were a lot of fans of Amy and Maggie there. And I heard quite a few stories about people who had not met them and trying to work up the courage to be able to speak to them. And, one lady in particular said that it wasn't Amy, it was Maggie, was sort of walking around Advent Games and where the board game designers were, and just sort of casually stalked her. Just sort of giving her the Serengeti, giving her the side eye, just waiting for the moment to come in and introduce themselves. It was sort of a bit like that, and I just thought, it's just what a wonderful thing. Like, it's so, and she was so chuffed that she was able to finally say hello and meet them. It was wonderful.
It was really amazing to have all those people in the same space.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To have the community talk to these designers and artists and all these different people, and it was great. And I heard plenty of stories like that throughout the event, which was really nice to to hear from other people. I got to talk to Matt Dunstan, or I got my game signed by Phil Walker-Harding, or my rulebook signed by Martin Wallace and things like that. And it was just, it was really great for people to have those memories and take those memories away from PlayCon.
Even when I think about it, how wonderful was it for those designers in Designer Alley to be able to get advice and meet people like Matt Dunstan and Phil Walker-Harding and seek advice from them and maybe get a relationship for future advice. What a wonderful forum for them to be able to do that, but also even mingle with each other. Certainly the designers that I spoke to in Designer Alley, who were, for those people who are listening who don't know, they were people who had unpublished games who were hoping to play test and get feedback on their games. And they were able to, mingle with each other and give each other advice. And actually, it seemed like they were, by the third day, they were really close, that group of people. It was wonderful to see.
I think it was one of the unintended kind of consequences of the con, is that you did have this mingling of, junior designers, senior designers, junior artists, senior artists. And it kind of gave me a sense of, by the end, I was very proud because it gave me a sense of there is an Australian board gaming industry and it's thriving. I think there's the potential where if we continue to grow PlayCon, that it could kind of really demonstrate that Australia is not something to be kind of thought of as just an afterthought, that we have a serious board game scene here, a serious design community, and a serious board game hobbyists, and hopefully it's able to put our region kind of on the map, both Australia and New Zealand. All right, how about games? So this is a gaming podcast. Shall we talk about some games? Any games that you guys played at PlayCon that you wanted to mention now?
I will mention that we all attended an after party in my hotel room. Do you remember, Dana?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I was thinking, what after party?
Well, it was Lauren's fault because
I was there.
I convinced Lauren first, and then Joe was like, "Oh, okay," and then Dana was like, "Please no, like if you all go, I have to come because I don't want to miss out." And lucky you did, because as soon as we got in the room, MJ got her Oscar the Grouch pajamas on and fell asleep on the bed while we all sat around and played Rebirth by Mighty Boards, right? Yeah, Mighty Board Games. And I really enjoyed it, if I'm honest. It was so smooth. And that's kind of a Ryan Kinsia thing, man. Like, he is very good at just that smooth, kind of snappy play where you really have a limited action, but it's about the space of taking that action. And I loved it. I thought it was smooth, fun. There was a bit of to and fro. Immediately, I'm not very good at these area control games. I never continue to win, but I immediately just took a really horrible action just to upset Joe, and he was so upset instantaneously. And I think he'd played it before, but maybe with two players where it's a little bit more passive, whereas you can get quite up into people's faces early on in this game. And yeah, it was super smooth, super fun, super simple. A great game.
It was quick.
Yeah, an hour? Was that an hour?
Yeah, it probably was.
Yeah, with a teach, about an hour. Yeah.
And that was like starting that teach at like 1:45 in the morning or something. So, it was pretty late. It was great. I mean, Joe, what is your thoughts? Because you've played it at multiple player counts and
yeah, it was a lot more fun at 4 players, I thought. So I think, at 2 and 3 players, it was a game that was good, but didn't blow my socks off. But at 4 players is where I thought I saw it really shine, and really that I think the game relies on that interactivity and that ability to kind of cut each other off to really get the most out of the game, I think. So, I would highly recommend it. If you're someone who regularly plays at 4 players, I'd highly recommend picking up the game.
And it fits on a, 40 centimetre round coffee table.
It was very precarious.
Oh, there was a few times where Dana like bent over in her chair and
that wasn't
head was right next to the board, and I'm like holding the corner of the board so that if she comes up, she just hits my hand. Yeah, it was really super smooth. It was really fun. It was perfect game for that kind of night. I think it's also a perfect game for just a quick, you want to play a quick area control game, but you don't want to spend 4 hours, playing Ankh 5-player or something. But playing it with 2 players, Joe, it doesn't like decrease the map size, or there's like a cutoff where you can't go to try and force you together. Does it do that?
It does, but it's not enough that it really forces you together, because so it does kind of shrink in from the outside in a bit. So it does cut off. What you end up doing is you take one of the player colors that aren't being used and kind of put those castles on the spaces so you know that they're not available. But it's not enough, because you can still really kind of stay on 2 ends of the map, essentially, unless you're really trying to go for each other. But then I think even that, if you're really going for each other and at each other's throats, I don't think it'd be as fun, because you're just going to be going backwards and forwards, take-thatting each other, and I just don't know what you'd get out of it. So, and even at 3 players is the full map, but then again, you just don't have enough of that friction to really give you where the game shines. What did you think, Dana? You played it too.
I enjoyed it. I did find that at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, the rules teacher wasn't taking it in. So
you did great.
It was a little bit hard for me. I'm getting old. It was just hard for me. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was well worth it. And I felt that it was a very simple game, exactly like what you both have said. It was a very simple game. Yeah. So
cool. Anything else? Any other games you wanted to shout out from the con that you thought were quite fun?
Soda Smugglers. I can vouch that was good fun. Jules is right. I think that's better than Sheriff of Nottingham, just because it's so much snappier, streamlined, really simple premise, super easy. You can teach it to anybody. You can play it, high player counts. It doesn't drag on. There's enough bluffing in there that it is fun and interesting, and you can get away with stuff. And yeah, I mean, we set up the Jackbox at like 10 o'clock at night or whatever it was, Joe, and we sat and had a couple of games on it. We had all the bean bags out and the screen up, and then, we're very lucky that Jace looked after a big part of that for us, but we got to sit down and play this together with Jules and Sam McDonald, and I can't even remember who else was there at that point. MJ.
It was me, you, MJ, Sam.
Jules.
Harry?
Maybe, someone. Yeah, Harry. I think Harry was there. Yeah, Harry was definitely there. But yeah, it was great. It's another one of those games. It's like perfect late night convention game where it's just everyone trying to blag and bluff their way through things, and also playing mind games with each other, trying to make people think that you've got stuff in your cases when you don't, so that they, kind of like in poker, they call your bluff and then you bluffed it, and then they're like, dang. And then they don't want to pick you next time, because they're concerned. They're concerned that you might bluff again, and then they'll get caught short. And I do love that whole premise of you have to give a sincere apology. Like, it was so good. And by that time of night, everyone's definitely in the right mindset to be doing like the cheesiest, most grovelly, sarcastic apologies ever. But that was a great game. I really highly rate it. If you can get it anywhere, I'm not even sure where you could get it at this point.
More than Meeples.
Well, there you go. More than Meeples. But I would, if you want that kind of a game, it is like top tier when it comes to those kind of games for me, for sure. And I can see why Jules loves it. He was laughing his socks off throughout the whole thing, mainly at everyone else's discomfort and displeasure. But that's the kind of sick guy he is, right? So he's that evil dude. So
yeah, exactly. Dana, did you actually get to play anything, Dana?
I played one game of a game called Farmer's Market, which was taught to me by Lauren. Very simple, puzzly game. It only goes for about half an hour. And it's a mixture, I would describe it as a mixture between Point Salad and Nine Tiles Panic. I don't know if you've heard of that game before, it's an Oink game. So it was basically you're setting up a grid, which is, it's either 4x4 or 5x5, and you're drafting tiles into this grid. All these tiles have either resources or ways of scoring, and you're scoring rows and columns and how many pieces of bread you have in this column. If you have less than 2, you'll score this many points. And once you finish drafting and you complete your grid, then you score it. And that's the end of the game. But it was very, very puzzly, really great. And it was perfect for me because then I could get back to photographing photographing everybody else playing games. So it was very enjoyable, but Farmers Market was good.
Yeah, great. One that I really enjoyed was one that JB and his crew had brought along called Paku Paku. And it's like this silly little dexterity game where it's real time. So it's a real time dexterity game, both things that I don't do well with. So I was like, oh, God, this game's going to be not my thing at all. But then when we started playing it, it's a game where you're essentially around the table rolling dice. And as soon as you roll a dice face that's red, for example, you have to reach out to a pile of different plastic things. And I think essentially it's like a cup or a mug or like a saucer. And then when you roll the red, you have to place one of those plastic bits in the center of the table. And then you can keep rolling. And so if you roll a green, you can then pass the dice on to the next person. Then if you end up when you're placing the different bits of plastic, you have to place a different bit of plastic. So if there's a saucer that's on top of the tower, then you have to place a mug or a cup. And if there's a cup, so on and so forth. So you're creating this tower. And what happens is if you go to place something on the tower and it tumbles, or if you ever have 3 dice in front of you because you haven't been able to roll a green, you then have to roll the dice that are in front of you and you get a certain number of negative points depending on what you roll. And so it just goes around the circle again and again and again. And so what ended up happening is that everyone's like yelling Paku Paku or Paku Stop, which is what you yell when someone makes a mistake. And it's just, it was very rowdy, very fun. And I really enjoyed it. I'm now looking to try and find a copy.
Was MJ in that game?
I can't remember.
Because she's bought it out off the back of PlayCon. She played it with somebody and said it was brilliant. And she immediately went online and found it somewhere, and she has a copy. So.
I think that was a volunteer favourite, actually, because for some reason I was hanging around the library, and I noticed because the library was particularly quiet at the time, and they were playing Paku Paku, the volunteers were, and they were having a ball. So I think a lot of the volunteers had sort of shared it and amongst them and were playing it. It looked really fun.
Yeah. Again, surprising. I think real-time dice rolling and dexterity are relatively polarizing type mechanics in games for board games. Some people really don't like them, and I'm not very good at those, but I was surprised at how silly and fun it was, for sure. The other one that I thought was really surprising that I really enjoyed, that I'd never heard of until the con, was one called Far Away that Adrian and I played. That was also very fun. It made me feel extremely stupid by the end of it. But it's this little card game where you're essentially drafting cards, and you have to draft cards and then place them in a sequence, in a line, left to right. And the conceit of the game, the twist, is that you're placing cards left to right, but then once you've placed out the full amount, which I think was 8 cards, you then flip them all over, and you then essentially resolve them right to left. And so you have to kind of plan ahead and think backwards, which I was not good at. You have to think backwards in the way that you're placing cards out, because the cards have requirements, resources or requirements for cards further down the line that for them to be able to trigger, to get the points off of them, you need to have a certain amount of the resource, for example. And so it was a really interesting puzzle, and it's one of those games where by the end you're like, oh, I realize all the things I've done wrong, and if I played again, I would have sequenced it totally differently. I know I played with Adrian. Dana, did you play this at the con as well?
I didn't. No, I didn't. But I did get a copy from, could have been VR distribution, and I spoke about it on the pod, who knows how many episodes ago, and I really enjoyed it as well, like a little mini furnace. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
It doesn't look like that, hey? It's another one of those ones, like you look at the box and you think it's going to be some lightweight family little card game, tile laying or whatever, but when you play that game, it burns your brain cells, man. Like, it really was like trying to sequence all that stuff basically in reverse really makes it hard. And yeah, I can definitely see after a couple of plays, you definitely increase your knowledge of the game. The first play I had, I think, was with Matt Dunster and Bobby Hill. And like, I was the equivalent of like the amoeba that first crawled out of the ocean compared to those two people. Like they were just light years ahead of me. But hey, it was really interesting, and I really love that personal puzzle of trying to math out and be as efficient as you possibly can in a game that's tiny. Do you know what I mean? Tiny little box, tiny little tiles. Yeah, it's really one to watch out for. I don't know if it's out here yet. I think
it is. Yeah,
it's
it
out?
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's definitely one of those games in a series of games that's like, small box, but a lot of crunch. So if you're into that and you're looking for value out of the game, I think Far Away absolutely is a great game to go and check out.
Another one that I didn't get to play, even though I really, really wanted to, and luckily enough, MJ played it and said it was fantastic and absolutely loved it, and that was the Anarchy. Basically, the sort of sequel to Hadrian's Wall. It looks very similar, but I think it's more complex in ways from what I understood, that if you've played Hadrian's Wall, it's a good starting point to sort of learn this game because it shares similarities in certain ways. Yeah, it looked great. MJ was lucky enough to play it. I'd love to play it. She immediately actually followed it on like BGG and stuff because she never does that. But she's like, we can't miss it. I cannot miss the Kickstarter for it. I have to get it. So yeah, we were very lucky enough to just see it in the room, to be honest, and see Bobby Hill teaching it. And that was really, it was really cool. But we actually got to play another prototype, Joe, of Bobby Hill's, which was really, really amazing. And it wasn't until probably as we started to wrap it up was the point where I was like, no, we can't wrap it up now. I'm really starting to get into it. And it was a brilliant game. I don't know what we can and can't say about it, so I'm not going to say anything, but I know it's linked and tied to a book series, so a sci-fi book series, which, yeah, seems Bobby has a lot of passion for, which is amazing to see. And yeah, I kind of went full journo mode and started asking all these deep questions about responsibilities to the author as opposed to responsibilities to real history and stuff. But yeah, the conversations were phenomenal. But the game was pretty heavy for that time of night. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to play it again. And I'm sure that we'll get to talk about it on the podcast in the future with Bobby. But I know that, Joe, you were starting to really get into it as well. I could see your face like mathing things out and yeah, you were going hard. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think we can say the name of the game. So it's Expedition to Darwin 4. It's been announced. It's on BGG.
Cool.
So it's designed by Bobby Hill, who also designed the Anarchy, which is what Adrian was just talking about. I was also shattered that I didn't get to play the Anarchy. The whole con, I was saying to Bobby, I want to play it. I must make some time and play it. And then I just never got there, which is very sad. But yeah, Expedition to Darwin 4, I believe, is going to be coming to either Kickstarter or is going to be eventually released. And it was so much fun. Like, I think we only played the first 3 rounds of the game, and you could see it probably had another hour and a half, 45 minutes kind of in that area left. So much fun. Yeah, really keen to talk about this in the future. Actually, it would be great to have Bobby come on the podcast and talk about the game when he's able to, because so different to what I expected from Bobby in terms of, what he's done with the Anarchy and with Hadrian's Wall. So thematic, really interesting puzzle mechanics, and it helped that I was smashing you and Dan as well. So it was very enjoyable.
I always play a turtle strategy. I get all my points at the end. I don't fluff about with 2 and 3 points in the middle of the game. I get the big win at the end. But no, it was fantastic. Like, really fun. I was like, I just wanted to keep playing it.
Yeah.
But I was the same as you. I knew it was going to go on for quite a while. Yeah. And there was so many other things that we had to do that night. But yeah, it was great. I can't wait to try it again. Yeah.
I think it was my favorite surprise. Like, I'd going from having never heard of the game to like being so keen to get my hands on a copy eventually.
Yeah.
In the one, like not even full play. I thought it was very impressive and really enjoyed it.
I know I need to make time. I need to make time to do these things instead of photographing everything, because it sounds so fun. It sounds really exciting that you guys got to play all this.
Oh, but Dana, you smashed the social media for PlayCon, and I want to take just a couple of minutes to say that you did such an amazing job and you worked so hard on that social media, and it shows across the Facebook, the Instagram, across the whole thing. And you were working the entire time. And I want everyone who's listening at home to give Dana a round of applause because she did such an amazing job.
Oh, God. This is really embarrassing.
Was there any highlights for you, Dana, being the social media guru and taking all the photos?
Well, it was quite a funny story when before the convention, I had arrived a couple of days beforehand, and I thought I wanted to go into the venue and photograph inside the venue or take a video and say this is where we're having the convention, that kind of thing. And they wouldn't let me in. And I said, "Oh, but we're paying for the room." And they said, "No, sorry, we can't let you in." And I said, "Oh, God." Anyway, I thought, what am I going to do? And anyway, I went back to the room and I thought, I'm grabbing my pillow and my blanket and I'm going to go and take a photo laying outside the venue because I wanted to do that anyway. It was quite funny as I walked out of the travel lodge with the blanket over my shoulder and the pillow underneath my arm. The guy in the foyer just sort of gave me a bit of a strange look and I said, "Oh, look, I'll bring it back. I promise I'll bring it back."
I can only imagine what he thought.
Yeah. And fortunately, when I got there, I just sort of knocked on the glass because it was completely closed. It was locked and the security guard was there. I just sort of stuck my mouth in between he wouldn't even open the door properly. I had to speak in this tiny little gap in the door. And I said, "Look, would you mind just taking a picture of me?" And he said, "What? Well, is the venue going to be in the picture?" And I said, "Well, I want to be sleeping out here." And, "Oh, you can't have the venue in the picture." And I said, "Well, I'm on the footpath." And he goes, "Oh, I really should ask the boss, but all right, okay, I'll do it." So it was a very good spirited anyway.
It was such a good photo. Everyone I show that photo to, Dana, I go, "My friend Dana bullied a security guard to take this photo."
Oh, God. But no, that was pretty funny. And one other moment that I thought was really funny was we had this micro-macro wall at the venue. And for those of you who don't know, it's a board game where it's basically like a black and white Where's Wally puzzle type thing. And you're solving crimes that happen within this puzzle. And we had this giant wall and it was wonderful for all the attendees. They were all really enjoying this wall. But over 3 days, we had the same security guards there every day, all day. They sort of started to develop a little bit of interest in this wall. And we managed to, and actually it was Jules that captured the picture, managed to get a picture of the security guards that actually taken the case, like the I don't know what you call it, the questions that people were doing. They were actually doing the questions, and you've got this photo of this security guard with his radio pointing out all the features of this micro-macro wall. And when I went there were quite a few people there that couldn't find certain things, and the security guard would go up and say, no, there's the bank. It's up there. But it was just so funny to see that even the staff that were there thought it was just amazing. And he was saying, "This is so wonderful. I've never seen anything like it. Kids these days, they're in front of screens and look at this. It's fantastic." It was great. It was so good.
It was such a good, that's like that, you sleeping in front of the venue are two of my favorite photos of the whole thing. That photo of the security guards at the micro-macro wall is like, I don't know, a Pulitzer style photo. It was so candid and such a beautiful sight. I really loved it.
Oh, yeah.
My final favorite photo was the one of Connor asleep on the beanbags. It was at the end of the con, and we all felt it.
Yeah,
I was the prop person for that. I was running down to the library and grabbing a game, and then running back, and then Dana was moving stuff. It was so fun. Like, I enjoyed doing that. It was great.
It was fun. Yeah. Oh, we had so much fun. We had so much fun. And next year, I want to do like a full-on board game Olympics when nobody's in the room. We had that whole room to ourselves. When everybody left, we could have like a board game Olympics. It would be so much fun.
It's a great idea.
I have a couple of favorite photos. One is the one where I don't know what was happening, but someone let you talk to Amy from Thinkathema, and
Oh, yeah. Oops.
I don't know what happened or what was said, but you guys were both laughing your heads off. And I had my phone out at the time. And I just snapped a bunch of photos, and it was just such a beautiful photo of you both laughing together. I really liked that. That was great.
I can tell you
And
what
then-
we were laughing about because I said, sorry.
Are we going to have to edit this out, Dana?
I think so.
No, not at all. Not at all. It was I was so nervous, and I said, we're here at the convention with Maggie. And she goes, I'm Amy. That was my first sentence to Amy.
Nice. So
Nice.
good. Professional all the time. But yeah, it was just great. Like little moments like that were amazing. And that's another thing as well. I know that we had it on the Conquest card to do some photography and post your photos and that, but the amount of content creators, I can't remember all their names. A couple of people on Instagram, I'll have to look them up because I'm not an Instagram user. But, they came out and they recorded little daily vlogs and posted it on social media and got the word out there. And everyone just having fun and using the hashtag PlayConAU was so helpful. Like, it really makes the difference. And us looking at everyone having fun is what fuels us to keep going and do this stuff. And it's nice to sit back when it's all done and dusted in the car on the way home or at the airport or wherever we are, and we can look at all the hundreds of photos of people having fun and just, sit back and enjoy that. Like, that was really, really cool that people took the time and the effort to actually do proper social media stuff in their own personal lives. So that was amazing. And I mean, the list of thank yous and pictures and stuff that flooded for the next 3 days after PlayCon was just overwhelming. It was so nice. Like, it was I don't know what the feeling is, proud, happy, like whatever, one of those things, mix of the both. But it was just lovely to see so many people so grateful to be able to play games somewhere and hang out and meet new people. So
I agree.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Adrian, Jules, and Mitch would have put the absolute lion's share of organising the con, and all three should be very proud of the huge success of the con.
It basically was half your life.
Yeah, 100%.
You put in so much effort, and your vision, your vision of what that convention was from the start. You had the vision very early on, and you made it happen. And you, Jules, and Mitch, and everybody who helped as well should be very proud. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much. I don't know what else to say. Like, yeah, I agree. I don't know. It's just really, it was really good. And you're right. Like the basically 2 years of prep really helped. And everyone here that's listening knows that we run game days and other events. And that was almost like a training kind of mentorship into something like this. And that's why I think, Joe, we were able to keep that community feel and that same vibe and passion from everybody attending, because they all attend our game days. They all know it's a safe space to be, just to have fun, hang out, everyone enjoy each other's company. It was just, it was great. So,
yeah, I think, it was everything. It exceeded all of my expectations and hopes and dreams for what it was. And I'm sure it's the same for you, Adrian and Dana, and just makes me so excited for PlayCon 2025. And, for all our listeners, I hope that we'll get to see and meet you all there as well. And, buy tickets early. Don't miss out. We had lots of people on the waiting list. So there was lots of regret, I think, in terms of not getting a chance to come along.
Sure.
On that note, I think, go on, Adrian.
Just a quick one before we move on. I haven't got the chance to speak to you about this, especially on the podcast, and I really would respect your opinion. We played Barrage together, and I remember the look on your face throughout, and I remember doing a really dick move that blocked out MJ, which probably cascaded into being a bit of a problem for you as well. And the photo of you both flipping me off and the dog behind you, even the dog knew I had done something naughty. Like he had a look on his face like, what have you done? And it was a great photo. But like, yeah, I mean, I'd just like to know, what did you think of it? What are your thoughts on it? I remember you saying it was ridiculously tight. How do you get that wheel to move? How do you get that wheel to move plenty of times? But go. Let me know.
I guess, speaking of games that make me feel extremely dumb. So I guess it's your number one game, Adrian. I better say something nice about it.
Yeah, you don't have to say anything nice. It's all good.
I actually really enjoyed it. And I have this kind of thought with games where it's either, games a lot of the time are either about scarcity or abundance. And Barrage 100% is all scarcity. And it felt extremely restrictive and extremely tight. And for what's, a heavy Euro, extremely interactive, and you can really screw people over. And I always enjoy that. So as much as I, will shout expletives at my friends when they screw me over in a game, I actually get a lot of enjoyment from that because I also do get enjoyment from the vice versa. So, yeah, look, I thought it was a very difficult game. I think it's one of those games where the more you play it, I can see that you could get mastery 100%. And I think playing against you and MJ, it's like me on my little tricycle with training wheels with you two on motorbikes. And I think Shane RC and I kind of
I think Shane won, but it was the typical thing of I would not let MJ get these positions that I knew she was trying to get, and I would rather lose than see her get joy. So I was like, that's fine, and I'll just block you here, then I'm going to build here. And she's like, how are you doing this? And yeah, I mean, it is very interactive, and that's for me, that was the first kind of very interactive game that I have enjoyed. But yeah, you're right. Like once you played it 10 or 15 times, like you really get like a feel for what you can do, and then you start to think like, well, I've done this a few times. What else can I do? And I really feel there's almost no limit to some of the weird exploits and combos that you can do in that game without even realizing it. I'm still playing in that 1v1 World Cup. I'm still qualifying. I'm still in. But some of the things that I'm doing in there, I've never done before. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I've got to try and do that on the table. But yeah, I'm really glad that I got to show it to you. It's something that, it's a weird thing. Like, I don't know why I feel proud of doing it, but I'm like, I really want to show this to Joe because he hasn't played it, and it's a shock. And I've taught it to Dana as well, like a long time ago.
Yeah, no, I was very thankful. I think I'd originally bought the game and then I tried to learn it. I was like, this is too much for me. And I think I sold it after that. But, now that I've got a steady flow of Lacerdas under my belt, I think it was a lot more accessible to me than it was, 2-3 years ago. But yeah, I enjoyed it and I would 100% play it again. And I can see why. I think if you're someone who enjoys that feeling of mastery of a game, I think I can see why you would really enjoy it.
Yeah, that was all. I just wanted to hassle you about it.
Yeah, you've been saying that you've been wanting to talk about it for ages and we just haven't been on the pod together for a while.
That's exactly right.
All right, shall we move on to some very quick lightning round sizzles?
Sounds good to me.
Hi there, it's Dana Banana from the Board Game Barbecue, and if you listen to the podcast, you'll know that I love a new board game smell. So when I'm in need of a new aroma, the best place to go is to head to Advent Games. They have a huge range of games from pre-orders to in-stock games. Actually, I don't think there's a store that can match their variety. Dean, the owner, is fantastic, and if I'm after a particular game, he's always so responsive. So if you're after a new board game smell, make sure you go to adventgames.com.au.
All right. So in terms of games we want to sizzle, why don't we start? Dan, I'm interested to hear about your game. What did you play this on the retreat you were recently on?
I did. I played this I was on a board game retreat. My game group in Brisbane twice a year goes into a retreat, and we play games for a couple of days most people in their pajamas or hoodies. It's like an hoodie fest. It's really relaxing, really wonderful. No, it's fantastic. I didn't even shower for 2 days. It's fantastic.
Cool. That's great. You're really selling it, Dana.
I know. Yeah.
No showering. I'm in.
So today I thought I would talk about a game that I played on the retreat called Faiyum. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. And it's by a designer called Friedemann Friese, who designed Power Grid. It was actually published in 2020, and I remember seeing it be released, but didn't think much of it because the only experience that I've had with Friedemann Friese is Power Grid. That's it, and I've only played it a few times, but that's about it. This was suggested. It was suggested to me that we play it. I was with another lady at the time, and I must admit I wasn't terribly excited to play it. If you have a look at, I guess, the box art, and then when you open up...
It does look like it was made in 1920.
Yeah,
2020.
Yeah,
which is not an issue. It's just that, it doesn't have a visual appeal that instantly draws you in, right?
Correct. So, yes, it's quite bland and basic. I would call it functional. I'm not sure whether that's very complimentary, but it's functional. There's basically a game board, a set of cards, some wooden components and resources, and that's it. From what I know about Friedemann Friese, I think his games are a bit wacky, or sometimes the themes are a little bit wacky, maybe. And it comes in this... I'm not selling it really, am I? I mean, I'm like sizzling this game. But anyway, it comes in this annoying green box like Power Grid that doesn't fit into a Kallax shelf. And it's got this ancient Egyptian picture on the front. And as I said, it really doesn't sell itself very well. But the setting of the game is in ancient Egypt. 3,900 years ago, and there was this swamp-like basin, and they reclaimed it to turn it into farmland, this area. So it's a deck. It's not a deck builder. It's a deck construction game and hand management and worker placement. And so in this game, it requires a lot of planning. So if you like that in games, pre-planning, and you'll have to plan several moves ahead, this game would probably appeal to you. So you've got a game board that's covered in hexes with a water landscape around the edges, and it's split into different farming regions. So you've got grapes, wheat, and rock. And when the game was being set up, I thought, this is so weird. It's half of the board is covered in these it's all covered in these hexes, and then there's alligators on half the board, and you think, what the hell? But when you read the theme, it actually makes sense that it was reclaimed from a swamp. So it does actually make sense, but it looks weird when you first come across it. The setup is super easy. 5 minutes. It takes 5 minutes, and it's a pretty easy teach. The rule book is only about 7 or 8 pages long. So you have a hand of cards. Everybody starts with the same hand of cards, and then you've got a card market, and players take turns, and you can do one action. You can either play a card, buy a card, or you can rest to reclaim either all or part of your deck. So when you place a worker, for example, and to do that, you need to play a card to do that. You can get resources or money, which help you build things like settlements, roads, houses, and factories. So, for example, a card might say, place a worker near a settlement to get X or something like that. And that might be victory points. It could be money. And then you might have another card which converts money to victory points, that kind of thing. It is actually really simple, but there's more to it than that, because when you retrieve your cards, you're retrieving them in the order that you played them. So when you reclaim your deck, you're not actually just picking up your deck like you normally would in a deck builder. So, for example, if I played 10 cards, the rule is when you rest that you get $3 minus any cards that are in your hand, minus $1 for each card that's in your hand. So, and then you have to pay. You get 2 cards from your discard, and then you have to pay for $1 for each card that you get back. So you have to be extremely careful what order you play your cards in. And it's highly likely that during the game, you will not actually, the cards that you play first, you may not even see them again because you're constantly buying better cards. I actually wasn't very good with my planning. One thing with this game is that the workers that you have are not yours, which is another interesting thing. Workers are shared. So they're in the shared pool with all the other resources. So, for example, when a card tells me to place a worker next to a settlement, I grab it from the supply and take it. But if people have bought a lot of cards that require have actions that require workers can actually run out. And so you're left with all these cards that require workers, and I can't really sort of do anything with them. So I have to find a way to try and reclaim other cards in my deck or find a way to get money in a different way. It's so interesting. And I think that this game would never be the same because the actual game ends when it's pretty much all the cards are gone. There's a certain set of ending cards that you can take. They're called disaster cards. And when they come out, the game sort of ends then. So you're going through almost the entire deck. Some of those, the way the card market turns over, it turns over in such a way that some cards will go out of the market so quickly because cards get discarded every time someone rests. So sometimes people rest like directly after each other and you've got 3 rests in a row. And so the cards cycle through very quickly. And there are only a number of cards that deal with factories, for example. Factories are one of the components in the game. Well, all the cards that have factories, well, they got discarded because people rested when they were out. So we literally didn't even use some of the components in the game because it just so happened that these cards were discarded. So you had to sort of work out other ways of getting points. And it was a really fascinating game. It's ugly, but it's fascinating. And I want to play this game again. It is so interesting. And I think it goes up to 5 players. And actually the turns were so quick, I think it would play really well at 5 players. I was really, really impressed with it. I'm surprised actually when I looked at the document that we have that it hadn't been sizzled yet because it's very, very good. And it's a lesson to me to not judge a book by its cover sometimes. You've just got to keep an open mind about games. I couldn't have been more wrong about this game when I first saw it. So it was really wonderful. It's a great game.
Have you played it, Adrian?
No, but I can see why it's not spoken about. I think we all talk about it, right? That don't judge a book by its cover, but unfortunately that happens all too often, right? Like we see it on the shelf, we see it in the shops, we gravitate towards the nicer looking design that we like. And this definitely doesn't ooze that appeal. This looks like it's honestly like made in 1984. Do you know what I mean? Like that, and that's not a problem. It could be a great design by all means. What Dana was explaining, it sounds very interesting. But yeah, I think that table appeal is so important these days to the majority of gamers. That's how these games do get through. They do get lost in the abyss of all of the other crazy and beautiful looking games.
Well, that's the thing, right? So that's the thing. It's such a crowded market that to get people over the line to play the game or buy the game, you can't, in my opinion, you can't just ignore the art or the marketing or, how the board looks, the graphic design. All of that stuff is really important. There's no point having a great, interesting game or a great mechanism if no one's going to play it? And maybe it's just our ignorance. It's a game I see played often, like at the game days or at other gaming meetups. I do see it on the table often. And I've always thought, oh, that looks ugly. But it does sound really interesting, right? So that mechanism you were talking about the sequencing of the cards, both the way you put them down and pick them up, sounds very unique and interesting. And it's just a shame about the wrappings.
Yeah. So that's it. Faiyum.
Nice.
Great. I might quickly talk about a game that I played yesterday, which pretty much knocked my socks off. So the game is Skyrise. It's been, I think, talked about quite a bit recently.
Yeah.
It's a game that was designed by Gavin Brown, Sebastian Pelchon, and Adam Wise, and published by Roxley. It's one that kind of flew under my radar, and when I'd seen things about it, I got the sense, it's one of those games that's like overproduced and there's not much game there probably, and it's probably relatively light. But then I got to play it yesterday at 4 players with a few mates of mine here in Melbourne, and man, I absolutely adored it. So it went from being nowhere on my radar to buy to I'm trying to find a copy of the game, the Kickstarter edition of the game with the plastic buildings that have been pre-washed, because it is so – I just had such an awesome time with it. For those of you listening, if you don't know the game, it essentially is an area control game with bidding elements. I'm not a huge fan of bidding games normally, but I love area control games. And so I saw it going out quite a bit from the library at PlayCon. So I thought, my friend owned it. I was like, okay, let's give that a go. It's going to be a quick game. And it's a game essentially where you're kind of bidding with buildings. Every player has buildings that have on the bottom of the building a number of different increasing values. And one of the really clever things in the game is that each 10 essentially, each 10 value, so 10, 20, 30, 40, only goes up to a maximum of 4. So one person will have 11, the next person will have 12, next person will have 13, last person will have 14, and that kind of is different and mixed around the 4 different players. And that's interesting because it means that you can then kind of guess, I've got the 54, and that means it's the highest in the 50s, and it means that I'll probably win that particular bid for that particular area. The other thing I really loved about it was that it is a game where it's very difficult to plan ahead. So I'm very bad at planning 2 or 3 turns in advance, and this is a game that doesn't really need that. What it needs is for you to be able to quickly think on your feet and use your gut in terms of, what are my objectives and what am I trying to get out of the game, and how do I best do that based on the scenario that's in front of me. So I really love that in games and in area control games as well. It's just so much fun. The way that you score in the game is through essentially controlling certain parts of the board. So the board essentially, and the theme of the game is that you're building these Skyrise towers in a city in the clouds. And so the city is made up of 4 different islands, and then there's a central island that connects the 4 islands together, and you're trying to get points by having control essentially. So the tallest buildings or the most buildings on a particular island. And of course, they're also the way that they kind of keep things fresh and don't prevent things from getting stale is to have end game points from cards that kind of you can rotate through as you're playing game on game on game. And that'd be things like, there are bridges in the game, control both sides of a bridge and you'll get 3 points. Or have a building in a space that has a windmill, for example, and you'll get X number of points. And then each person also has a card with their own personal goal that gets them 10 points in the end of the game as well, which is usually, control the most X number of coloured spaces on the board, for example. I think what really surprised me was that it's one of those games where it just felt so fun to kind of think, how am I going to best screw someone over in this spot? How am I going to place my building and bid so that way I can get what I want? And the way the bidding works is that the person who won the last bid gets to make the first bid. You have to always bid for a space that is next to another structure on the board. And you also have to, and then the next person that bids after you has to bid to a location adjacent to where you've placed that bid. And the next person after them has to place a bid on an area adjacent to where they bid. And so it causes this chaining effect along the board where it's like you can't really plan ahead because it depends on where the person bids and where the direction other people take the bids. Yeah, it surprised me at how how interesting the puzzle was and how much fun it was. And it's one of those games where the production actually adds to the feel of the game. There was these beautiful, plastic towers that were pre-washed that really add to the feel and make you feel like you're playing this game where you're like architects trying to build onto the board. So yeah, have either of you guys played Skyrise?
I haven't. No, but it was played quite a bit during the weekend that I was on, and it was very impressive. It's literally the anti-Faiyum of board games.
Yeah, that is exactly right. It is, because it's got like a raised up plastic board.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're flying in the air and
Beautiful.
You're building on these sky cloud type sea structures. And then you have these massive Skyrise buildings coming out of the board all over the place. It does look very impressive on the table. Like it's pretty interesting. But yeah, and I didn't realize how that bidding mechanic actually worked. Yeah. It does sound way more interesting than I'd ever give it credit for. As soon as it said auction on the BGG page, I was like, not super keen.
Yeah, I was the same. Yeah, and I'm the same in general with auction games. I just find them, hit or miss, I think. And I think they implement it very smartly and in a really interesting, crunchy way.
So I don't mind if they're short. Like if it's a short auction game and I'm not there for an hour and a half and then feel like I've been hamstrung and stuck and getting outbid on everything. But
you can't, can you play it too?
It says on BGG that you can play it at 2. On BGG it says best is 4, which I can see why that would be.
Yeah.
With the 3 player, the friends I played with said they played it at 3 players, and essentially what happens is that you end up with more dead ends because I think you take one of the islands away, and so the layout isn't as good. I think it would have been if they'd planned ahead, and maybe they do this in expansion so that you could swap out the middle island and then have like a 3-island configuration with a different central island.
Almost like a triangle type thing.
Yeah, like a triangle configuration rather than a square.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So and maybe they do that with future editions or future expansions. But so I think it's want to be one of those games that where 4 is the best. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what happens at 2. It's hard to know. So that is Skyrise by Roxley Games. Adrian, what did you get to play?
I played this game like 3 times during PlayCon, and I haven't played it sober, and I have never embarrassed myself quite so much with basic mathematics in my life in front of Sam McDonald, who was literally pointing out my mistake, and then everyone at the table also laughing at my mistake, which is completely fine with me. But that is Dice Fishing Roll and Catch. This game is already been released. It's from 2016, designed by Satoru Nakamura, and basically you can't get it. You can't get it anymore. But All Play have had the rights to it, and they're now reprinting it under the name Lure, like as in like a fishing
lure. Yeah. Lure.
Yeah, and you can pre-order it. MJ's already pre-ordered it, so sweet as. The game is so simple. Essentially, there's a deck of cards which are the fish. You flip them over, and there is a cost element involved to the fish, right? Let's just keep it simple for my own sanity. It's 12, right? So behind your screen, you have 5 D6s, 1 D10 and 1 D20. And how it works is you need to set aside the amount of dice you think you need to roll to score 12, which is what it takes to catch that fish. Okay? However, the player that bids the least amount of dice will be the first player to roll their dice. So as an example, if I put forward 2 D6s out of my pool, and then when I lift up my screen, there's 2 D6s, and somebody else had more dice, because obviously getting 12 of 2 D6s is very hard, I get to go first and run all the risk of rolling it and potentially catching that fish, which would be great. However, some of the cards on there have like 17 as an example, and you need to roll a 1, a 3, and a 5 and get more than 17. Okay? So sometimes in the game, there'd be a 9 and a number 1 would appear on the card. And I would put forward just 1d6 thinking it was a 6. However, if I need to get a 1 anyway, there's no way in hell I can get it with 1d6. And I would still roll it out of spite when I realized my mistake. But it was really fun, really snappy. The way the D20 and the D10 work are essentially you can roll them. And I believe on evens, you get to do 2 rerolls of your dice. And on odds, you get 1 reroll. Or you can use that as a number. So your D20, you could roll and get 17, and you've already got 17 covered, and you just need the other dice pool to get the different numbers on the fish.
I think that was one of my favorite parts as we were playing more games of it and you had more cocktails.
Yeah.
Is that you would very confidently be like, aha, look at this. And it was like 1d20, but on the card it was like a value 12, and then you had to have a 6 on the d6. And it was just like, all of us would just turn to you like, you have to get a 6. What are you doing, you idiot? And then you'd still roll it to see if you'd get it. It was so funny.
But that was fun. Like, I didn't mind at that point. At that point, there was no redemption for me. Like, I'd already made 3 or 4 mistakes, but it was so fun, so simple, just like Soda Smugglers, like all those kind of games that we got to play, because they're not very long. Like, it's 20 minutes, if that. So we don't have a lot of time. So by the time we've done everything in the evening, we've got maybe 2 hours to sort of play something. And I don't want to pull out something big and heavy or crazy, but this is a game that was actually introduced to us by Sam McDonald, and I loved it. It was so much fun. Really enjoyed it. The chaos of revealing the dice and someone just having like 1 D20 and they're going to use it to roll, and they only need to get like a 17 with nothing else. They didn't need a special dice, and if they get it, catching that fish was great. Also, if 2 players had a roll off together and they both don't get it because they didn't complete it, they basically then play another card on top of that card, and then the victory points then stack up. So then the fish becomes worth more. And that was quite interesting because potentially you could have 2 or 3 cards stacked on top of each other and one player can win them all. Yeah, it was great. Super simple, super fun. It was nice to get shown that game and then to buy it. And then we showed Sam No Thanks, which is like a big game in our community. And then he bought No Thanks. So that's kind of a cool trade-off. Like, we bought the game that he showed us and he bought the game we showed him. So there's something kind of beautiful about that. But yeah, great time, great game, super simple. Can't wait to play it with Finn. I know that I will put it out there as well that I'd say the game of the convention was Sausage Sizzle, even though I didn't get to play it. All I heard throughout the convention was the people chanting sausage. And I'm sure
sausage.
Yeah, that's pretty much all you could hear around different pockets of that hall. But I've played it with Finn and MJ just recently, but I'm sure one of the future hosts of the show will have a much more in-depth analysis on the chaos that game brought to the convention center. So dice fishing, roll and catch, or dice fishing, I can't count. Whichever title you want to call it. But yeah, it was so brilliant. Fun. It was so
fun. It was just so clever to have like a push your luck kind of game where no matter what you do, you would feel satisfied. So, if you would go very few dice and just hope you'd be lucky and push your luck that way, if you got it or if your friend got it, you'd be like, oh, everyone would start screaming like, oh my God, I can't believe you got it. Or on the vice versa, if everyone else is going really risky and you go very safe, if they all bust and then you get it, you're like, haha, I'm smart because I wasn't going to be risky and you're all idiots. Yeah. So it was extremely fun. I also have pre-ordered it through Advent Games, so can't wait to get my hands on it. All right. On that note, shall we go to announcements? Okay, so we have the 4th annual Board Game Barbecue Awards. So we're going to be announcing the winners from our awards on July 30th. Please check out our socials over the next coming weeks as we kind of celebrate the nominees in each category that we had as nominated by and voted by our community. After that, we're going to be announcing the winners with a video. So it'll be a barbecue awards video that we'll be posting on YouTube, and we'll be adding all the links to that on our socials as well. And we actually filmed that live at PlayCon, so that was really fun. If you're at PlayCon and you heard large rounds of applause, that often one of us from the crew were announcing it. So you can check out the awards on our socials or on YouTube as well. So just keep an eye on those. We also have the Brisbane Board Game Barbecue Game Day, which is coming up on the 17th of August. So Adrian and Dana will be there. It's at the Parkview Hotel, which is where it was the last game day that the whole crew came up and had a look. There's only 50 tickets remaining, so highly recommend you jump on it.
Not even true anymore. There's less than that. It's going crazy. But that's awesome. Just shows this community strong. And even though everyone's absolutely wrecked from PlayCon, people are still keen to rock up and smash 12 or 14 hours worth of board games. So.
And if you're in Sydney and you're wrecked from PlayCon and you want to get along to the Sydney Game Day, that also has been locked in. So that's on the 2nd of November at Castle Hill RSL, which is where it always is. So if you want to get along to the Brisbane Game Day or the Sydney Game Day, head along to eventbrite.com and just search for Board Game Barbecue.
Just one more quick announcement, actually. We now have a sort of official entity on Aftergame. So if you follow us in any shape or form and you've used Aftergame our events, or even if you're using Aftergame to track your plays, we actually now have an official Board Game Barbecue community on Aftergame, and it has a bunch of other stuff on there, so you'll be able to see other announcements and things that come up to with events, and especially useful at PlayCon. So many people used it at PlayCon to organize some of these bigger games. It was very cool to see. So yeah, just check that out on Aftergame. Look us up.
It was honestly seamless. I don't think any of us had any people come up and ask us questions about it. So it worked really well. I was very impressed.
It did work really well. There was a guy that I was talking to that planned all of his PlayCon games on Aftergame. And he said, I literally didn't move from my chair the entire game, and I was completely booked out. I don't know if you saw him, but he had balloons on the table. And every day I saw these balloons.
Daniel.
Daniel, that's right. It just made me smile seeing these balloons. But yeah, he was booked out the entire 3 days.
Man, what a king, just sitting there and games coming to him. That's the dream.
Yeah.
He did Captain Sonar one with 8 people.
Oh, yes.
Was doing dive and all that stuff. I mean, I've only ever seen it played. I've played the family version, but that other one looks so intense. Like I would not want to be on anyone's team because I know I'd let them down. I would let everybody down.
100%.
I'd be bored. I'd be looking over at the wall, waving MJ, asking him to give me a cocktail. I'd be like, I gotta go. Yeah, it looked great. They had a blast by the looks of it. So
yeah,
awesome. With that, let's get on to the question of the pod. So let's recap the question of the pod from episode 301, I think it was. So, because 302 was the timey-wimey time loop episode that Adrian and Dana were on. So from 301, the question of the pod was, how do you feel about mean games and why? And we had some responses from our community. I'll hand over to Dana.
So from Facebook, Peter Campbell, who was at PlayCon, they just make for the best of gaming experiences. It simply ratchets up the stakes, and if you can get the banter going, there's nothing that comes close. Also separates the wheat from the chaff, if you get my meaning. Cassie Simpson says, I don't really like them. I don't like my board state being messed with, but if they're short and it's the right group of people, I'll sometimes play. Ingrid Wright says, my partner and I can't play mean games when it's just the two of us. But as soon as there's a third or fourth person playing, game on. And Adnan says, if a game rewards being mean to a single player repeatedly over a long play time, it becomes less fun. Sadly, why we eventually removed the excellent through the ages from our collection. Kicking the weakest repeatedly via military was just too rewarding. When a game encourages everyone to always be mean to everybody else all the time, peak board gaming. Another helping of Arcs, please.
Oh, I'm so keen to play that game. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Adrian?
On Instagram, we had Squeak Inc. Games say, not into them, which is fair enough. there's a reason why Euro games have grown to be so popular, and one of those reasons is that they are friendly.
Not true.
It's just saying mirage.
Well, the Mean Boys Club doesn't like that attitude, right, Joe? So,
That's right, exactly. Yeah. Hashtag.
Hashtag Mean Boys Club. And A Tale of Two Meeples said, take that can be fun with a group, providing everyone is getting into it and enjoying themselves. At 2 players, not so much, though we definitely still want competitive games at 2, just not ones that can result in divorce. Totally understandable. I get it. I do find that 2-player, like, if you can get ahead on someone and you're just pummeling them, it's not very fun.
What about you and MJ?
That's different. That's completely different.
I mean, that's brutal, man.
Yeah. From Discord, we had Chris say, meanness in games, in a surprise to no one, I'm not a massive fan. However, if it's a quick game and everyone's being mean to each other, like Stick'em, that's fine. But I don't like playing games where you can make it so people are no longer having fun. We play games to socialize and have fun, and if the game isn't fun for someone, they don't enjoy it. And I never want to be the one that caused that.
It's interesting. So my answer is going to be obvious for this, being one of the 2 in the hashtag Mean Boys Club. But something that Sam McDonald said in his interview with Stella from Maples University really applies here, which is board games is like one of those areas or hobbies where you can kind of really get that out. You can kind of it's almost like a war game, or what would have happened back in, medieval times, where you're like sparring in the yard with a sword. You can kind of get that aggression, quote unquote, out in a friendly way with your friends and get that spirit of competition without it being, with it being socially acceptable and not have people offended or have people, come away hurt. I think if everyone at the table comes to the game with that spirit of, we're going to screw each other over and we're all going to enjoy it because it's really fun to either screw your friend over, be screwed over, or watch your friends get screwed over, I think that's where it's really fun, and you really get that, I don't know, you just kind of get it out of your system, similar to, those social deduction games where you get to practice lying and things that aren't socially acceptable, but yeah, lets you kind of exercise those skills.
Be honest, right? Honesty is the best policy here, right? Because I already think I know the answer. But has anyone ever done a move to you where you've basically had a sulk about it internally, where you're just not happy?
It's actually never happened before. Even when I'm outwardly like, swearing at you and being like, I can't believe you did that. In that barrage game, for example.
Yeah.
I can't believe you did that. How could you? You've completely cut me off. I'm actually internally enjoying the experience. I've never stormed off or anything.
I think for some people it might be the case that I think that some people can't get past that point and they do get upset about it. I mean, I've had turns in various games done to me which have almost pushed me out of the whole game. And that's when you're in a game like TI or something, it's just like, well, I'm just here now for the next 2 hours, just sort of plodding along. And it's great socially, like, because you can just chat and, eat cheese and drink wine and keep rolling dice and TIing, but you don't feel like you're competitive anymore. That's a hard thing. I think that even like Ankh is a good example. The 2 bottom players get to merge and then vastly accelerate their victory potential from being the bottom 2 to very easily being able to either take the win or get second from being 4th and 5th. Like I like mechanics like that where, you're down and out, but there is a point in the tipping point of the game where that's not the case, where you're still competitive. Because like I think Chris said there, it's if you've beaten someone down to that point and they're just stuck there, even Adnan mentioned it as well, it's just not fun. I mean, it is fun, but the other player is not having a good time, and that's not fun. Even if they understood that, hey, we're all going to pummel each other, and that's fine, but you don't want one player who's basically out of a game for over an hour, just sort of, milling around.
That's great. I think that's why the design's so important, right? So it's I think conflict-heavy games are actually harder to design than a solitary, Euro, for example, because you have to account for not just the mechanics of the game itself, but also how players are going to come into friction with each other. So balancing that, I think, is really important. And like you said, you've got to be able to feel like you still have a chance to, increase how well you're doing in the game. Dana, what do you think?
No surprise, once again, that I do not like mean games at all, and I very rarely play them. If I have played them, I believe I got roped into with another couple of people to a game of, and this is a very simple family game called Escape to Atlantis. Does that sound right?
Escape from Atlantis.
That's it, yeah. And you're like pushing people into sharks and stuff like that. I remember the guy that taught us the game. We were all pacifists. All the other competitors, except for him, were like pacifists, and he was livid. He was getting so frustrated with the game. It was almost like a table flipping moment. And I remember afterwards, after the game, he just said, "You're not supposed to play the game like this. This is not how it's designed to play." But I just don't enjoy making people feel bad. I just don't enjoy that. So, and in particular, with my husband, if I was playing 2-player, like with my husband, I don't enjoy seeing him struggle or anything like that. I don't enjoy that. I'm looking at you, Adrian, and I can see going, are you?
The problem is that all I can say is MJ started it. Like, I was passive, and then she was not, and then it was like, okay, yeah. So
no, I don't like him. Sorry, it's just not for me.
I think that's fair enough. And like we were saying, I think everyone has to come to the table with the same spirit. And expecting to get the same out of the game.
I don't even like lying. I'm terrible at lying. I really don't like it. If I get the trader card, I am swearing under my breath because I know I'm going to be crap at it. I just don't like anything like that. Yeah. I'm as pure as the driven snow.
Apparently, and I don't believe it. Anyway, thank you so much for your responses to last week's question of the pod. For the new question of the pod, it's going to be this one. And if you didn't get a chance to respond to the last question, you've got an opportunity to respond to this question that we have for this week. And the question is, if you could work in the board game industry, what would you do? Dana, you already work in the board game industry.
That's it. I know. I work at a board game shop.
That's right.
I'm on a podcast, so I'm very, very lucky. And I wouldn't do anything else.
I think
Dana would do anything.
She'd work in the factory. She'd be working in the factory, just snorting of the roll line of the conveyor belt of the board game, just unharmed every box.
Oh, that's it. So. No, look, ideally, I do like the content creation side of things. So I would probably do a little bit more in that regard. I don't know, whether it be video content creation or even photography or something like that, like board game photography. Maybe something like that would be something creative.
Adrian, how about you?
I would love to have more time to help play test and develop games, but I just don't have the time. It's just not possible. And I was really into play testing at one point and was doing it 2 nights a week, sometimes 3 nights a week. And I still really enjoyed it, but just current life situations and that don't give me that kind of freedom anymore. But
if you could, so if money wasn't a problem and you didn't have to worry about a job, what would you do?
I would love to I'm not a designer, I'm not very good at designing, but I would love to head up playtesting for someone or maybe even help develop and, look at developing different aspects of an already working design just to see what happens when developers get involved and what can be more streamlined and changed for different aspects and that. But yeah, that's what I do. And to be honest, it never ever occurred to me that the events and stuff would be the way they are. And I'm very grateful and lucky that I get to do that for fun and passion. Like, I'm very grateful that we get to do this for what we do. And yeah, I love the events. I love meeting people, talking rubbish. Like, just
You're very good at talking rubbish.
I know, it's so good. It's like, if I got paid for it, it would be amazing. But like, I'd be like a billionaire. But like, and Finn's pretty good at it as well, so he'd be like a millionaire by now as well.
That's right.
So, but like, yeah, it's just, I just like that, and I like seeing people having fun. It's something about that that's kind of infectious, and I'm happy to not play games and do that kind of stuff, and almost like Dana sitting back with a photography and that and looking at everyone else having fun gives you this sense of achievement. And I feel the same way about the game days and stuff that we do. So yeah, that's
Cool.
me.
What about you, Joe? What about you?
Yeah, I think similar to what Adrian was initially saying. So I think I'm not creative whatsoever. So I'm always so impressed when people can think of outside the box and think of ways to mix mechanics or do things. I just don't think I have that capacity. But I think I'm quite good at, I'm relatively analytical. So I think developing a game that's already been designed and getting it to a place where it's the best it can be, I think is something I'd be relatively good at. And I kind of got a little window of that. I sat down with Kim Breback and one of the first-time designers in Designer Alley at PlayCon, and got to see. It was fun seeing how Kim interacted with the designer, and how kind of talked about the game. It was really cool. Otherwise, I'm very systems oriented. I'm very good at like designing some systems. Think of how to fix a system or fix a problem in a company based on the underlying system. So something like the logistics or the shipping, I think I'd be relatively good at as well. But yeah, I don't think it'll ever happen. But we'll see. But it doesn't matter what we think. We'd love to hear more. Log into our socials on Facebook or Instagram, or join us on the Discord and let us know what you think about that question. We'll move on now, and wanted to give a massive thank you and a shout out to our Patreons who make what we do possible with their support. And it was great getting to meet all of you at PlayCon a couple weekends ago. And a shout out to our new Patreons. So we had a flurry of new Patreons after PlayCon, which was so lovely to see. And so a massive thank you and a welcome to Narelle Williams, Maddie Atkins, Carlin, Naomi K, Lisa B, Margot, and Mika Gregoriades. So welcome all, and thank you so much for your support. If you aren't at Patreon yet and you want to support the podcast, you can always go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue. You can sign up to donate and get access to our exclusive podcast episodes that we record just for our Patreons. You'll also get a shout out on the pod, just like our new Patreons got. If Patreon's not your bag, or you're not into Patreon, there are lots of ways you can support us without having to donate on Patreon. And so two of the biggest things you can do to support us is to leave a review in the various podcasting platforms, so on Apple Podcasts or via Spotify. Even just pressing even a star rating does a huge amount to increase our presence on the various podcast apps and manipulate the algorithm for us. You can also get involved in the community. So we've got a thriving Board Game Barbecue community on Facebook, Instagram, on Discord, or on our YouTube. So come along and support us that way. And if you're interested in any of those things, you can find all of the links in the show notes. And now we're going to swear our oaths. So I'll check in with my co-hosts. How did you guys go with your oaths from last time?
I don't. Oh, you're going to just... sometimes I just dread these things because I'm such a failure.
Oh, Dana.
I didn't do it. I was supposed to do the start working through the 1,000-Year-Old Vampire book or journal. It's a journaling RPG, I think. And I actually took it with me on my weekend away, and then I forgot the dice. I left the dice at home, and I just thought, oh, for God's sake. Anyway, so shocker. So anyway, fail, whatever, big F. So
Dana, you can get like dice rolling apps on your phone, which will roll dice for you.
Oh, yeah.
Just in future. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, oh, God.
Just so you know. So next time you won't be able to have that excuse, okay?
I tell you what, I belong in a home. Honestly, I belong in an old
way.
people's home. Anyway, so I'm going to continue to do that, and then I will have to add on the fact that I'm going to play the Expeditions expansion that has just recently been delivered. So I'm hoping that it improves things slightly to a game that I do enjoy, but it just needs a few tweaks. So hopefully will be good.
Is that the Stonemaier Expeditions?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right, great. So in terms of my oaths, so I've got the ongoing oath for Ticket to Ride Legacy, which I still have not done, and I will hopefully do one day, but I can't get people around a table to play it, so I feel like it's not my fault. And I've learned a lesson to not add any legacy games to oaths. Don't do that. No.
Yeah, that's a big no. But I would love to play that. Like, I'm really tempted to get it for Finn, to play it with Finn. Like, I think he might enjoy it, but I'm also worried that I'll get it and we'll get halfway through and it'll just peter off and become harder to table. I don't know.
That it's not good. It's best not to play it at 2. I've heard to play it more than 2.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that I bought it because my husband loves Ticket to Ride. He plays Ticket to Ride on the phone all the time, but just can't get more than 2 around a table to play it, which is a shame. Anyway, my other oath was to play Unsettled with Dan, which we did do. It was so much fun. We played the first planet and the first 2 scenarios. We got very cocky with the first scenario, and we're like, yeah, we smashed it. And then the second scenario absolutely whomped us. And so it was super fun, and hopefully we'll be able to get together and play that again soon. In terms of my next oath, I'm going to need to have a think. I actually haven't thought about that one. Maybe let's go to you, Adrian, and I'll have a think, and I'll get some inspiration from you, perhaps.
So my oaths were to play Shinjuku or Leiden 1593, which was the tulip farming economics game, but I had kind of prerequisited that MJ had said we could potentially play both, but in the end, we only played Shinjuku. And I liked it. It was fine. I think it needs to be played at 4 to get a proper experience of it. It just felt too slow. It felt too long, because we were building our own rails ourselves and our own network. So with 2, I just felt like it just took a bit too long to get momentum, and to start enjoying it. But I think with 4 players, it would be great fun. Like, super simple, not a hard game to play at all. But I think it just needs that 4 players. I haven't played Leiden, but I would really like to, and I'm pretty sure MJ will be keen to play it because of her Dutch heritage. That's still there, but I have been lucky enough to be sent a copy of Reiner Knizia's Cascadero and Cascadito, which is the roll and write that accompanied it, from Bitewing Games. And just after playing Rebirth and having great fun with a sort of light Reiner Knizia area control game, I figured, well, crack this open and see the difference, because I've played Rebirth now, and this other one is also elements of area control and area majority and linking paths, kind of like in Rebirth. I'd just like to see the differences and give that a crack and see what they're like. So, and it's awesome. Beautiful Ian O'Toole art as well. Like, it's such a nice looking game. Like, it really is. So.
It's really pretty. It's one of those games where I backed and unbacked a few times and then just ended up not backing it. So very keen to hear what you think. Cool. So that's Horseless Carriage. Oh, sorry, I'm going to do Horseless Carriage. Whoa. So that's Cascadero for Adrian. Yes. And I've thought of my oaths, so I'm going to play Horseless Carriage. I recently picked it up at one of the board game swap meet / selling events here in Melbourne. I'm pretty sure I actually bought it off Amy and Maggie via this swap and sell. So, keen to play it. I've heard very good things about it, and I remember seeing Adrian playing it. I think in Sydney at Behold Games. I think. Keen to give it a go. So my oath is to play Horseless Carriage before next time on the pod, and that's it. We're done.
Woo!
So thank you so much, Dana and Adrian, for being very very good co-hosts. My first time, very well-behaved co-host for my first time hosting the pod.
MJ told me to be good. No kidding.
Thank you, MJ.
Well done, Joe.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, well done, Joe.
Yes.
You're much better than Mitch.
It's because I'm nice. Anyway, with that, thank you so much for listening to the pod. We'd love to see you be part of the community, and hopefully we'll see you at a game day or a PlayCon soon. Bye.
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 How are the levels? Look good to me.
2 for 2, 2 for 2.
2 for 2.
2 for 2.
What was
You don't know that? Well, they always used to test the microphones.
Was that during the First World War?
No, for God's sake. That's terrible. Come on.
Is there? It's 2 for 2. 2 for 2.
It's 2 for 2 at the MCG. You know, who was the dude with the safari suit who used to do the commentary?
Steve Owen?
I don't know.
Me.